You're listening to Off the Road podcast series, and I'm your host, Aniston Wright. Everyone knows the story of the Three Little Pigs, or at least I think they do. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Nobody knows the real story because nobody has ever heard of my side of the story. I'm Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how this whole big bag wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet, but hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies, sheep, and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. But like I was saying, the whole big bag wolf thing is wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. Way back and once upon a time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneezy cold. I ran out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now, this neighbor was a pig. And he wasn't too bright either. He built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, in his right mind, who would build a house of straw? So of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house, so I called, Three Little Pig, are you in here? No answer. I was just about to go home without a cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. That's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed a great sneeze. And you know what? The whole darn straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of the straw house was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner laying right there in the straw, so I ate it up. Think of it as a cheeseburger lying there. I was feeling a little better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar. So I went to the next neighbor's house. This neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not that much. He built his house out of sticks. I rang the bell on the stick house. Nobody answered. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in there? He yelled back, Go away, Wolf. You can't come in here. I'm shaving my hairs on my chinny chin chin. I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt a sneeze coming in. I huffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not going to believe this, but the guy's house fell down just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was a second little pig, dead as a doornail. Wolf's honor. Now, you know food will spoil you if you just leave it out there in the open. So, I did. The only thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little better. And I still don't have my cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. So I went to the next house. This guy was a first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house in bricks. I knocked on the brick house. No answer. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what the rude little porker answered? Get out of here, Wolf. Don't bother me again. Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't give me one little cup of my dear old granny's birthday cake? What a pig. I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed once again. Then the third little pig yelled, And your old granny can sit on a pin. Now I usually am a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. When the cops drove up, of course I was trying to break down this little pig's door. And the whole time I was huffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene. And the rest of the story says it's history. The news reporters found out about the two little pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy was going to borrow a cup of sugar. Didn't sound very exciting. So they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down. And that made the big bad wolf. That's it, the real story. I was framed. That's the true story of the Three Little Pigs. Read aloud by Aniston Wright, as told to John Sheshka, illustrated by Lane Smith, music from YouTube Off the Road series.